Good afternoon, everyone. Hope I'm audible.
Yes, ma'am, audible.
Thank you, sir. Now, I will take the opportunity to introduce our very special speaker, Dr. Raja V. Sridharan. Sir has done PhD in the field of Lean Six Sigma from Anna University. Sir is currently working as the assistant professor in the Rabat Business School, Morocco. He has earned the corporate exposure working with the Apollo Hospital as the external auditor for 5 years implementation and the process engineer in the Volvo. Sir has published many articles on the business transformation, including several very high impact publications. His current research interests are in the center of the data analytics for the operations as well as supply chain 4.0. Sir will enlighten us with talk about how to manage the business in the VUCA world. Sir, I would like to request to please take over the session.
Thank you very much, ma'am. It's a pleasure. So just give me a minute. Okay. I hope you can see my screen, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Uh,
Very good morning to one another, or good afternoon. Bonjour, salam alaikum, namaste, konnichiwa, buenos dias, and a very great day to all of you. So first of all, I would like to thank Shruti ma'am and her team for arranging this wonderful session on the faculty development program for rejuvenating Lean Six Sigma. So most of the participants from the morning would have been seeing a lot of technical stuff in analyzing the process and how do you control them. So I want to make the session a little light in the afternoon. So most of you are feeling sleepy. So I don't want to brag too much technical. So today I want to discuss in general how the businesses today are becoming very challenging and how business leaders are able to focus on them. So since the majority of the participants are from the manufacturing background, so today we want to discuss few interesting information related to the manufacturing sector, and also majority of you from the practitioners, also academicians. So we're going to discuss few points before we wind up about publishing good articles, some tricks of the trade. So this is the overall agenda for today's discussion. So let us go on. So if you see, this entire discussion is about, first we'll be focusing on the VUCA world. I'm going to give you the idea of the VUCA world, that is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Why it's very important now, and why we are talking about this. Later on, we'll move to the real life examples, how industries have faced this VUCA in real life, and what were their solutions for them. So how they were able to overcome this problem. Then moving on, some of the industrial leaders who were able to face the VUCA and they were able to bring success to the companies. And finally, as I talked about, some of the tips and tricks in publishing your works in well-reputed journals. So what and reviewer expects and how do you get things published easily. So this is the overall agenda for today's discussion. So moving on. So as ma'am has already said about myself, but a quick introduction about myself. So I started my career as a process engineer in Volvo, buses mainly in Bengaluru. Then later on, I started working with Apollo Hospital as a 5 years auditor and quality evaluator. And later on, I started my PhD. This is where I got the thirst for doing my research work. I started working with a lot of peoples internationally, and I finally started working with different peoples from different countries, and I started teaching in different countries like Dubai, Bahrain, France, and finally now in Morocco. So I have trained under some of the leading experts. For example, this gentleman is from the Harvard Business School, VG Narayanan, who is an expert in teaching case studies for budding scholars like me. So I had the opportunity to undergo a full-fledged training under him in IIM Ahmedabad. And finally, this is the present team which I work. It's a multi-diverse team, which people from around 10 to 20 different countries, different cultures, different nationalities. We were able to understand how people do think and work in such an environment to achieve a common goal. So this is the overall agenda about myself. So, first of all, guys, I think this is our favorite game, cricket. So, I'm just going to give you a small analogy. Just try to stay with me. This analogy is very important. So, playing cricket is like when you join school and you're in the final semester of your high schools. That is, you're about to finalize your school. So, you take a specialization. It's like computer science, biotech, commerce, on economics. So they tell you like you have to play cricket very well, and if you can get a good position, it's very best. So you become a batsman or a bowler. So similarly, in your high school, you study well, you try to secure a good scores, and everybody say once you know how to win this, you will settle in your life. So you get trained all these years to play cricket well. By the time when you reach the college, no matter what is your specialization, this is when they say, I know that you play cricket well, but nowadays the market is looking for somebody who can play basketball. So you have to adapt yourself. So all these years in the school, you have been trained to play cricket. Now, when you come to the college level, they ask you to think of something new. So in your bachelor's or in your master's, you try to adapt yourself to play the game of basketball, and you're absolutely fine and you're about to ready. It's very good, man. But now in your CV, we see that you play only basketball. But nowadays, industries are expecting people to play football. So this is what is happening around the world right now. What you get trained and what do you even get more trained in the bachelor's and master's level or in the doctorate level, but when finally when you come to the industry or in the market for a job, the requirements are totally different. So this is what we define as infinite world or infinitism, where the game keeps changing, the objective keeps changing, and the player has to adapt to this no matter what. So this is one of the reason everybody is trying to overcome the problem. And you should remember this, the game doesn't stop, only the player will quit. Imagine after a point there was Mardano, Pele, now Messi. In the next 10 years, there will be somebody new to replace Messi. So this is from this what you understand. The player keeps changing over a period of time, and the objectives also keep changing. So how do you adapt yourself is the biggest challenge. So this is what we consider as an infinitism, and this is the main feature of a VUCA world. We are living in a world which is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous because we are in the infinitism, which is very difficult to overcome. And you say, I can just play football and I can be in the game for forever. You can, but you cannot grow. There are a lot of constraints, and I'm going to show you the examples why. So before going into this, as all of you from the manufacturing domain or mechanical, you should know Shinji Shingo, the world's best practitioner in manufacturing, the guy who proposed the Toyota production system. According to him, whatever you try to do, no matter you're an academician or a practitioner, you have to achieve these four things in your job. That is, whatever you try to provide, the value, it should be easier for everybody to understand, it should be better, it should be faster, and it should be cheaper. So that based on this, people will consider how we can deliver value to any organization. So this point is very, very important. So in a VUCA world, this is the main agenda any one of you can take. No need to do all four, but for example, if you're going to provide a solution, it should be easier for everybody to follow. It should be always better when you try to do it, and it should be faster, like how you're able to achieve it. And finally, the whatever suggestion you're telling, it should be economic for the industry to implement. Moreover, you should always remember that nobody can predict the future of the company, but you help the company to invent it. That's the key agenda. For example, guys, If you remember, before the COVID crisis, some of the biscuit manufacturers, that is the fast moving consumer good or FMCG manufacturers in India, were complaining about poor sales of most of the packed food items. But at the end of the COVID, suddenly they had a spike in their demand, which was almost 200 to 300% rise in their demand. During that time, the company never predicted that their demand will go suddenly so high. But the workers were very cooperative. The company was still able to match with the production and satisfy the customers. So this is what you cannot predict the future of the company, but as a worker or an employee, you can help inventing it for the company. So when you take some of the world's best brands, so these are some of the world's best brands based on my understanding. So if you see all these companies are world's best brand because they were able to evaluate the VUCA world in a better manner. To give you some examples, you take start with the UPS. They are one of the world's best logistics supporters. They have unique policy and guidelines for getting your products to the final customers. And you take in terms of Toyota, Toyota is the best manufacturer in terms of quality, mainly for the automotive components, as well as the auto manufacturer. They are one of the most leading brands in US. Imagine a company from Japan all the way becoming successful in US. It's quite phenomenal. If you take McDonald's, McDonald's is the world's famous company in terms of fast food supply chain, as well as it is a company which was able to revolutionize the concept of fast food. And also, all of you should know this, McDonald's is one of the world's biggest retail companies in the world. That is the land they make their restaurants or the fast food supply area is under the McDonald's control. So they are one of the biggest retailers who are having a lot of land space. It's very important. So it's not just a food supply chain or a food fast food chain of companies. Also, it is one of the biggest landowners. That's very important here in terms of real estate. Then it comes to Disney. I need not say much about Disney. It's one of the most biggest consortiums in terms of manufacturing of films as well as movie motion pictures, I would say. Also, they have their amusement parks, and the revenue they generate is in millions in most of the case. And when it comes to Louis Vuitton is, I think, the most cheapest bag. I have no clue, but it should be around $1,000. They are more premium companies. They make exclusive brands, and they are still able to maintain the brand, so you can know. So whereas when it comes to BMW, which started manufacturing initially aircraft components, which later on came into the diversification of car manufacturer, and you know the rest is history, which you know very well. So like this, each of this company have a uniqueness, that is they've underwent this VUCA to achieve right now where they are. It's not just like that they become so powerful and popular. For example, you take the case of IKEA. Even though they still manufacture furnitures, till today they're able to be the one of the biggest company that generates revenue almost $1 billion in just selling furnitures. How do they able to do it? It's because they connect with the customers, where most of their furnitures are assembled by the customers. So that feel of completion and satisfaction is easily achieved by the IKEA when it connects with the customers. Or if you take any other companies, for example, you take Coca-Cola. Even though Coca-Cola has undergone a lot of controversies, they came back strong. Not only that, if you take Coca-Cola, it is almost operating in 206 countries. 206 countries, which is more members than the United Nations. So you can see how robust is their supply chain, so that they were able to connect with a lot of peoples around the world. It's like this, each of this company has their own unique value added aspect to our daily life. This is one of the reasons they become one of the powerful companies. But also you should remember this, these companies have been able to achieve this because they underwent this VUCA, where they were able to minimize the volatility in their process, find out the uncertainty in their production and their supply chain, come up with complex solutions for their IT and information system, and finally minimizing the ambiguity. That is, when they try to make a poor decision making, they were able to minimize it. So because of this, all the problem went down very easily. So this is the overview of our world's best companies. So you can ask me why you're always talking about global companies. Don't you find some companies in Indian context or anything? For sure, We are even some of the best companies in India, but main reason I share you this information is it's always easy to benchmark, practice, or even you can teach it in your classrooms. When I talk about an international case, which is you have the resource and material easily accessible when compared to the industries in India. That's the reason I propose on this. So before going on to the discussion, let us have a highlight of the present scenario that is happening right now. So as you know, the boom of e-commerce. So in terms of e-commerce, you should understand as a manufacturing industries, most industry nowadays rely on getting connected to their final customers. So you won't believe that when initially when internet came, nobody thought the manufacturers and customers will be directly connected. But nowadays it's happening as we speak. Only area I think we still have not cracked this is the car retail showroom. That is, you cannot go online and buy car. You have to go to a showroom to buy a car, but slowly that is also happening. So in the future, you can just log on to a website, you can choose whatever car that you like, and you can just get it delivered to your home. No matter, no need to even go to a showroom. That's the agenda right now we are going towards. So these are the companies that were able to achieve it for us. For example, Amazon, it operates in many countries except China. And if you take Alibaba, which is the Amazon of China, or you take Rakuten, which is the Amazon of Japan, and for example, Walmart and Flipkart, which you know better than me. So how these companies are operating in this areas of uncertainty is quite challenging, but they are still able to make a profit out of it. So this is one case, and also you would wondering why I put the company SoftBank, which I'm going to explain it to you in the coming slides. But as a holistic view, these are the companies which are frontline in the e-commerce, which were able to evaluate the VUCA in their business operations, and they're able to manage them without much ambiguity. This is one of the reasons they are the market leaders right now. So moving on, these companies are known for the uniqueness, which I need not even say much. For example, companies like Tesla, they never do much of advertisement. They rather highlight their product importance, or as you know, their inventor, Elon Musk, promotes most of their product using some unique ideas or launch event in the online, which is almost in the social media, which creates more revenue and more value for the company, and they don't spend much on the advertisement. Meanwhile, when you take Netflix and Uber, they focus on the concept of subscription or sharing economy. Starting from Airbnb till Netflix and Uber, all these companies have revolutionized very simple problems. That is, imagine in a VUCA, the most simple thing is ambiguity. That is, we know something we have to do, but we are so bad in recognizing it, we always lead to failure or poor decision. So this is what these companies are overcoming right now. They minimize the ambiguity. So how do they do? They start with different modules. To give a simple example, sharing economy. You need not have the full facility, which could be costly. They propose the concept of sharing economy and also the subscription concept. For example, Netflix focus on the subscription concept, which is one of the reason more users are able to adapt to that. So now Netflix has grown so powerful beyond the version that they decide what we watch and how do we watch it. So that's the same thing. So among this, you could ask me why Luxottica is here. So this is where I want to introduce something very important as strategy. When a company develops a concept or a product, marketing does help it reaching to the customer, but strategy is what makes you strong in the market and you get the enough market share. So Luxottica hit as a spectacle manufacturer, the glass manufacturer from Italy, and most of the glasses that are manufactured today, starting from your Ray-Ban, Oakley, all the brands that you could name off, it's actually manufactured by Luxottica under different names. So even though you may thinking you're buying a different brand, at the end you're just buying the same glasses that is manufactured by the same company called Luxottica. So this is the strategy they develop. They create competition internally within their same product, which gives the perception for ownership. That is, they're very unique, but at the end, they buy the product from the same company. So this is where we are heading towards. We are heading towards a concept called sharing economy based on subscription. For example, there are a lot of companies. To give you a quick example, there is a company called Grovo. Grovo is one of the biggest company that is growing in different countries. Recently, they came up with a new pilot program in Germany where whatever electronic components you need, you can just go and take them for a subscription. After you using it, you can return it to them in the same standard working conditions. You get your refund of the initial product when you got it. So all this put together proposes the new concept of manufacturing also. So this new again pilot program is happening in Ford in US. That is, they're planning to come up with a subscription for cars where cars can be just subscribed for a particular period of time and given it back to the company. It's not like a rental like Hertz or other thing. It's directly from the manufacturer itself. So the cost of renting could be very much less. I would say it's not renting, it's more like subscription. So these are the different agendas right now companies are trying to attract more customers. So these are unique areas for research also, which you can think of. And you not say much about this company. This is one of the world's famous company in terms of their reachability, in terms of their utility. They are indistinguishable to anybody. But even them, they have classified their agendas differently. For example, Google focuses on the traditional or the conventional things that hugely works with the people. Then Alphabet focus on the future and new emerging technologies where more focus and applications are needed. So nowadays, these new technology is also pushing people to the next level is the wearable technology. It's some of the underrated technologies right now, but to give you a quick idea, let me explain about this in detail. Imagine when you wear a smartwatch, what does it maximum does? You think it's connects your mobile with your smartwatch. No. Beyond that, it controls your entire program. It knows how do you walk, where do you go, what is your heartbeat, what is your blood pressure. Even it can monitor your movements better than anybody. So what happens is this data could be collected in a unique pattern and can be analyzed. Only thing is the way we analyze is still in the benign stage, that is in the early stage, but it is growing steadily. To give you a simple example, recently with Apple, a company called Dexcom, they have integrated a solution for diabetes. That is, there are two types of diabetes, type 1 and type 2. For example, type 1 is more hereditary, whereas type 2 is more based on the lifestyle. And it is mainly poor insulin level which creates this diabetes. So what they try to do is they connect your smartwatch with this sensor, Dexcom sensor. You have to paste it them in your stomach, which is near to your pancreas. So this sensor will collect your insulin secretion level, and this data will be shared to your Apple smartwatch, which in turn will be shared to the app Dexcom has developed. So instantaneously they can suggest you what kind of diabetic problem you will be having, and accordingly the medication could be suggested. So this is just the tip of the application of this wearable technology. So this is an area where a lot of people are still focusing on. So as you know, manufacturing this wearable device is also quite a challenging. So it comes in the smart production concept, but this is an area where again you can look at how it can be applied for our real life scenarios. So from this one, I was able to understand as this concept called FANG theory. FANG is Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google. So all these companies put together has reached more countries than any empire could even think of, like the Romanian or the Ottoman Empire or the even the Ashoka the Great or even the English East India Company. So all these things put together, only the FANG, these companies could be able to reach more countries than any kingdom could do. So this clearly says how strong this technology is revolutionizing our world. Definitely there are positive and negative opinions, but let us focus on the VUCA in this and try to resolve it. So at the end, this is what again I'm trying to say. From this oral understanding, you would have understood how much volatility is happening in your real life as we move on, and there are a lot of things that are very questionable. We have a lot of questions about a lot of things nowadays. So what do we eat? What do we wear? What do we use? What do we see? All these things has environmental concerns. All these things have cost concerns. So all these are uncertain, complex in terms of your decision making, how things are becoming very complex. Last one is ambiguous. Ambiguous means the illusion of understanding. That is, you may think that you know, but in the end of the day, when you make the mistake, you realize, you made a mistake. So ambiguous. So these are the overviews. Now, to show the proof how VUCA is affecting our manufacturing industries, let us quickly see them with the problem and with the examples. Thank you. So I need not say much about this company. They are one of the world's most innovative and the frontline companies that are made the communication device to the next level. But even this company had a VUCA in their business process. So I will just, rather than me explaining it, I'll let you know the video to explain you about the problem.
The Galaxy Note 7 is dead and...
Sorry, let me increase the audio for you.
The Galaxy Note 7 is dead and Samsung is in a disastrous situation. The company has now told everybody with the original device, with the replacement device, to power them down and that they're eliminating the Samsung Galaxy Note 7 permanently. This story feels like it's been going on endlessly, so let's take a step back and see how it started. August 19th, the Galaxy Note 7 is released to critical acclaim. Many said that this was the best smartphone ever made, and Samsung beat Apple to the punch with their iPhone 7. But almost immediately, by August 24th, there are already reports of these phones going up in flames. A short gap, and then on September 2nd, Samsung recalls these phones. But this is where the problems begin. Samsung said it was just a problem with one of the two different batteries that the Note 7 has, blaming it on one of the manufacturers. So the phone is recalled in places like the United States, but not in countries like China, which supposedly didn't have the defective battery. But then there's a delay, and the recall doesn't actually take place until September 21st, leaving lots of consumers all around the world very confused. But with new phones came new problems. Almost immediately, there were reports on social media of people having problems with what appeared to be the replacement phones. Then we even started seeing reports of problems with the phone in places like China, countries that supposedly didn't have that problematic battery. On October 5th, a Southwest Airlines flight in the United States even had to be evacuated when a Samsung phone went up in smoke. The owner of that phone said that it was one of the replacement devices. And then on October 10th, Samsung finally halts production, but doesn't actually do a recall of the phone. In other words, the phone wasn't good enough for them to keep on making for now, but was okay for consumers to keep on using. Now, October 11th, Samsung has put the final nail in the coffin. They're asking all Galaxy Note 7 users to return the devices to a retail store in exchange for a different phone or for a full refund. But there are still so many questions. What is the problem with the Galaxy Note 7? Was it a problem with the battery, one of the battery manufacturers, or is it...
So guys, from this you would have understood the Samsung Note 7 was one of the flagship product which Samsung relied on their launch, and they were expecting it to be the game changer and a good competitor for iPhone 7. But unfortunately, during that time, the bad battery manufactured by different suppliers was instrumental in affecting this product. So not only that, it quickly catches fire because of the short circuit. So this created more customer concern about the quality of Samsung and the reliability of the product. So people were a little hesitant to buy this. So this was the uncertainty in the problem, and the complexity in the manufacturing created this, which are two of the main attributes of VUCA. Now you could see how the company was able to overcome this, and this is the solution for this problem. Please do see this so that you can understand what the Samsung did.
Here's what happened and what we've done. Samsung rapidly took action for the Galaxy Note 7 and halted production. Out of 3 million Note 7 sold, 96% have now been returned. This past fall, 700 Samsung researchers worked to replicate the issue with more than 200,000 devices and more than 30,000 batteries. We are determined to learn from this experience. Here's what we discovered. Our findings concluded that the Note 7 device failures were due to two different factors that originated in and were specific to the two different batteries. As you can see in the first instance, there was an electrode deflection and incorrect positioning of the negative electrode tip in the upper right corner of the battery. In the second occurrence, an abnormal weld spot led to an internal short circuit, Now that we've identified the problem, we have undertaken extraordinary measures to further improve our quality assurance process. We've zeroed in on areas for improvement and developed an 8-point battery safety check, including charge and discharge tests. And then we check the internal components with X-ray scans. Technicians subject devices to extremes, inside and out. Extreme misuse, extreme weather. It's a rigorous regimen designed to reassure everyone about the safety of our devices. Our enhanced protocols go even further, beyond industry standards for quality and safety controls. It's all part of being committed to safer devices. Samsung's heritage and commitment to innovation will not stop. We will continue to put safety first and deliver the innovative experience our customers deserve. We will learn from this experience and evolve. That's what we've always done and what we'll continue to do. Samsung, committed to quality.
So, guys, this is one of the ideas that you could have seen very clearly. Now, we are going to discuss about the next problem. So, if you take any Lean Six Sigma, so it is called as a project. Any activity at the end in a Lean Six Sigma is called a project. So, in projects, very important agenda is, for example, you have an objective. So, if it is a Lean Six Sigma, we focus on the quality. But at the same time, there are 3 things that are very crucial for any project. It's the scope of the project, cost of the project, and the time of the project. But unfortunately, when you make a mistake, usually when you take in terms of lean, we try to minimize the waste and the time taken. So imagine in this triangle, the axis for time get increased too much. It focuses on the lean. Whereas in Six Sigma, we focus on minimizing the variation in the process, so which could be related to the scope. What is your actual target specification, as well as your manufacturing specification could have variation. So this may change your scope of the project. So at the end, when you try to do any mistake in time and scope, it will directly imply in the cost. So it's always very important to maintain a balance between these 3 axes. So that's something that fails is called a scope creep. Now I'm going to show an example of manufacturing a fighting vehicle which was developed by the US Army. It's called the Bradley fighting vehicle, and you could see how the scope creep created problem for this entire project. And this narration is done by the the project evaluator was able to understand the variation in this process. Let us see how it has happened. And you won't believe me, in terms of VUCA, we can discuss about small companies and organizations, but imagine that the same mistake is happening in Pentagon, one of the biggest and the most powerful organizations in the world. You can understand how VUCA is influencing all our business practices today.
I don't get it. What? That. It's a Bradley. Well, if that's the Bradley.
Madam, can you hear the video?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Then what's this? What's the date? 1968. The question is, how did they get to that? From this.
Gentlemen, our mission was to design and implement an infantry transport vehicle that would be a worthy replacement for the M113 armored personnel carrier. We have met that objective and then some. The Bradley armored personnel carrier will bring troops to a combat zone swiftly, efficiently, and safely. It will hold 11 men, plus a driver, and features a 20-millimeter cannon, which will provide ample firepower and at the same time flexibility. Lightly armored, speedy, and solidly engineered, our troops will be arriving at the battlefield in the very finest American technology has to offer. And at $1.5 million per, a real bargain.
Nice work, Colonel.
Outstanding. Damn impressive.
In other words, it was designed to be a big taxi cab, drive guys to the battlefield and go back home.
end up with a turret on top.
Well, this is all well and good, Colonel Smith, but something wrong, General? Well, with this gorilla in production, I don't suppose there's going to be anything left in the budget for my scout.
Doubt it, Bob. You don't need scouts. You have radar, air recon, satellites.
You always need a scout. And you know what I'm thinking? Why couldn't this thing serve as a scout? But it's a troop carrier, General. But this is a speedy vehicle. Why can't it be both?
Well, for one thing, it's too big. And for the other, you can't really see out all that much from inside.
Sounds like a design flaw to me.
Design flaw? No.
No, we'll just stick a turret on top with lots of opticals.
But then, sir, it'll be even bigger.
Well, what's your problem, Smith? Not elegant enough for you?
Well, the thing is, General, it's kind of hard to do a sneak and peek when you're over 10 feet tall.
He's got
It's fast enough to do the job, and it's funded.
You turned the Bradley into a scout, and they Timmy chucked the border before the paint even dries.
Well, you needed that in.
You did, Bob.
I'm talking to appropriations next week. Now, do I sell you on my scout, or do I not?
You did, Bob. And how about some portholes along the side
For individual firearms?
so the fellas can stick out their guns and shoot people?
Good. And you know what, Colonel? We already have the turret.
Bang the ass gun.
Where am I supposed to fit the extra ammo?
I don't know. Can't you just shift things around, make some room?
You already got 4,400 rounds of machine gun ammo. Now you want to add 25 millimeter shells.
General wants his ammo.
You can't have his ammo unless he runs alongside this thing carrying it.
Well, can't you just squeeze it in?
No.
Oh, come on, just squeeze it in.
We're not trying on Levi's here, Colonel.
Are you telling me that in a vehicle this size you can't find room for a few rounds of ammunition?
Not in its current configuration, no, sir.
So the configuration's wrong.
There must be something you can dump.
Dump, sir.
Something you don't need.
General, the interior is very spare. Besides the ammunition and the men.
Maybe you can leave one of the fellas.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I can have your attention, please. If you'd all just take your seats. Thank you. We are pleased to present a scale model of the new Bradley fighting vehicle. Featuring scout, troop transport, and anti-tank capabilities. It carries 6 men.
How many was it supposed to carry?
11.
Bradley is outfitted with the most sophisticated surveillance equipment ever developed. It is also equipped with a rapid-fire cannon and an anti-tank rocket launcher.
Which means it's loaded with
1,500 shells and 10-tow anti-tank missiles.
So in summation, gentlemen, what you have before you is
a troop transport that can't carry troops, a reconnaissance vehicle that's too conspicuous to do reconnaissance,
And a quasi-tank that has less armor than a snowblower, but has enough ammo to take out half of DC.
Fantastic. Congratulations, General Smith. General? Hell of a...
So, guys, you would have seen this is what happened according to the writer and the project evaluator. James Burton was the colonel in the Air Force, was the project evaluator which was assigned the task to check whether this vehicle is up to the specification. So this was his comments about the vehicle. Would have seen how much is the scope of the vehicle changed over a period of time and how much money was involved in this process. So there are different information about this online. You can check it later. But this is what happens in a decision-making process. We get deviated from our scope, which in terms affect the time as well as the cost. So this is what one of the main aspects in the VUCA, that is the ambiguity in the process. So as moving on, so I may not tell much about Kodak because it's a boogeyman. Boogeyman is the things that gets you afraid, because Kodak has been the master and the business leader in the field of film capturing, but right now they already have filed for bankruptcy, and they did two phenomenal things nobody has done. That is, they first invented the digital camera in the early 1980s. So you should remember this point. And also, it's the first company to develop something similar to Instagram in the early 2000s. That is Kodak Easy Share. That is, you can share images online for just printing them. So they didn't think that sharing images online could be something fascinating. That's what later on turned out to be Instagram, where you can just share images online. So you can see from this, they even found the next big turn for the company, not just one time, but two times, but they undervalued the process. So this is what led to the fall of Kodak. Imagine if they were really serious about the digital camera, or they're serious about this Kodak Easy Share, you don't know how their company business would have changed. Even you don't believe me, these are the words of the inventor who did it for the Kodak. So you see, according to him, what does he say?
So they understood digital. What happened? Well, they didn't understand something else. I'm quoting Michael Hiltzik from the LA Times. Kodak's executives couldn't foresee a future in which film had no role in image capture at all, nor come to grips with the lower profit margins or faster competitive pace of high-tech industries. And the inventor of the first digital camera for Kodak, Steve Sasson, agrees. He recalls that when he presented the camera to the technical personnel at Kodak, people loved it. But it was filmless technology. So management's reaction was, well, that's cute, but don't tell anyone about it. Talk about killing the golden goose. Kodak simply relied too much on film and razor and blades. But digital cameras were cheap.
So from this you can understand, guys, ambiguity, that is the ambiguity in the VUCA, how has killed the company's process. And you can see how their adoption strategy was poor because of their uncertainty in decision making has led to this problem. So moving on, let us see some of the best companies in the world who are still the best in the world has made the mistake due to the VUCA. So one such thing is the Prius. If you remember the case of Prius, they had an issue with their braking system which created a lot of problem. Let us see what was the issue and how they overcome this issue.
Gas pedals that could get stuck. But the company is still wrestling with how to fix brake problems on its Prius model and repair the damage to its corporate reputation.
In recent days, our company hasn't been living up to the standards that you've come to expect from us.
Behind the scenes, Toyota reportedly is considering recalling the 2010 Prius because dozens of drivers have complained that the brakes seem to fail momentarily in bad weather or on bumpy roads. CBS News has learned that.
So guys, from this, what you can see is when you buy a Prius model in the early 2010 and 11, the brake had a problem mainly in the ABS system. When you engage the brake, the driver feel that the brake doesn't get engaged instantaneously, which gives you a panic attack, because when you want to apply the brake and the brake doesn't apply, you can see how risky it is. So they were able to understand this problem, but the very important thing what they try to do is how do they address it quickly? And this is what they were able to do it.
For one of its problems, at least Toyota has a quick fix. Plug in the workshop computer, upload the solution to the glitch in the Prius's software, and the anxiety-inducing lag when braking in certain conditions should disappear.
It's very easy. It just takes 2 minutes.
Dealership garages across the country are at the front line in restoring the confidence of Toyota owners, as one by one they address the issue, which has led to a recall of more than 400,000 models worldwide.
The situation could be better if Toyota had explained it earlier, but I don't feel that the problem needs a recall.
We are all working across the board for our customers. The sales department staff are contacting the customers by phone calls, booking appointments, and sending out direct mails. We will be responding to the situation fully. We will also be putting up notifications on the web to help assuage customers' concerns.
So this Prius has had its upgrade. Toyota's technicians around Japan are going to have to do this some 200,000 times as they battle to restore trust in the brand. And away from the shop floor, Toyota's leadership is fighting the same battle. None more so than the company's president, Akio Toyoda. He's promised to go to the United States to explain Toyota's actions there. The company faces 3 US congressional hearings where it's expected to answer for the sudden acceleration problems which have led to 8 million recalls around the world. Toyota has reportedly hired teams of lobbyists and PR executives as it aims to convince regulators that its actions so far have been sufficient.
I think that they have been a little behind the 8 ball because they're not used to having to handle this kind of controversy. They're used to handling really good news, and it's a whole different ballgame when you're trying to do damage control.
Back in Tokyo, the upgraded Prius is marked, confirming it's gone through the recall process. 1 down, up to 437,000 Toyota hybrids to go. Harry Fawcett, Al Jazeera, Tokyo.
So guys, from this you could understand it's not just the strategy that you have, how you're providing a solution, but after that, once you made, the very important point is the damage control. So in a VUCA scenario, you should always have a contingency plan where you make mistakes. For sure, now we are in an era where mistakes do happen. It's not that you should not do mistakes, but when you make a mistake, how do you do the damage control? This is one of the important agenda that I want to share it to all of you today. And you can see how Toyota was able to do it. It is just a software update which takes 2 minutes, but the process of recalling it, scheduling it, and getting an appointment to getting done with the local book dealership that has to do it. So you can see the process, but Toyota made this more smoothly and more customers were able to complete this in a short span of time. And you can know this is one of the robust solutions they were able to develop. So in this VUCA scenario, you should remember damage control is something that's very important. So we should have an agenda for this. That's one of the main things that I want to share it now through this information. Moving on, now we are entering in an era where we cannot just say no more social media. You cannot say social media more. You have to rely on it because now not just the marketing, production, when you want to reach the final product customers, you need to monitor what customers like and how much they want to do new with your product. So you need the social media presence strongly. Recently, there was one of the ad done by the Pepsi using one of the Kardashian sisters, the Kendall Kardashian, but it turned out to be a devastating ad for the entire company. So rather than discussing detail about this, you can later on know about this online. There are a lot of information. Even recently in the Euro, you would have seen in the Euro 2020, the Portugal's player Ronaldinho. He told people not to use Coca-Cola and go for the water. He just told his opinion about health conscious, but he never expected that the prices or the stock price of the Coca-Cola will go down, which resulted in 29,000 crores Indian rupees or 4 billion US dollars. You can imagine just one small information from Ronaldinho had this much problem. So this is how the social media impact is going. So no matter how good is your product, how much you make it as robust or better, your social media presence that is positive or negative influence creates more value for your stock and in terms the value of your company. So such thing happened is with the Volkswagen scandal. If you can remember the scandal where the vehicle were been manipulating using a software where in ideal conditions the vehicle shows no emission of harmful gases to the environment, but when actually it is driven, it shows that it can emit harmful gases from the fuel consumption. So this case was a very big thing to be questioned, and the entire history of Volkswagen was put to question, and also the economy of Germany. But finally, they were given a green light to overcome this problem. But you can understand from this, VUCA doesn't stop not just from a small level, even it impacts the economy of a whole country. And Volkswagen is such an example. Not only just Volkswagen, if you take the case of data, now very important is, as I told you, not from a manufacturing perspective, you have to have a strategy in terms of taking decisions in social media, not only from social media. Next important thing is how industry operates. So in terms of operates, if you remember the case of tsunami in Japan, to give you a simple understanding, most of the critical components for Toyota, even though they're manufactured in US, some of the critical suppliers are still housed in Japan. So due to the tsunami, most of the suppliers could not be connected because the supply chain was broken. So this is where the concept of redundancy, backup supply concept comes into play, which shows that we are in a VUCA world, which doesn't happen. Similarly, if you take the case of Seagate, which manufactures hard disk for laptops, were put into test when their manufacturing facilities in Thailand were affected by floods. So these are God-driven nature of God. So you cannot predict such events. So you can imagine how our supply chain or our system is going to face this. So this is again the complexity in the VUCA. So this is where the biggest question, and Toyota really had a huge loss from this. So later on, moving on, as I was saying, apart from the manufacturing, social media presence, next is the data. How do you manage your data? And the data management is very critical nowadays because it can manipulate a lot of outcomes. So one such example is the Cambridge Analytica, where the data have been manipulated, as you know, more than me for different things, and also it affected the election results. A similar thing was happened with the Brexit and so on. So how people are going to perceive this, it's the biggest question. Even for any company, handling the data is biggest thing. And not only this data, even we find people which are very, very weird. So one such case is Thanaros. Thanaros is one of the black swan event, which is highly disruptive and highly unexpected. So this is also a new concept in the research. So if you're interested, please note it down. It's called black swan. So here, one of the world's famous company, they say themselves as Thanaros. They can predict your diseases using your blood, but one sample of your blood. And this woman is the Elizabeth Holmes. She was the inventor of this company, or the founder of this company, I would say. So she had a big idea. She got a lot of funding. She was become the hype of the entire business world, and she started her company. Valuation become $1 billion. Then there was a setback. Whatever she tried to do was all fake. The technology that she was proposing was not there, which led to her downfall. Then finally she was removed. The company was diluted. So a lot of things have happened, but nobody expected such a person will start like this and end up like this. So this is one of the biggest scandal in this entire century that has been revealed recently. So similarly, after all these problems, what do you understand? We have a lot of volatility and uncertainty, complexity and ambiguity in this world, and these companies have proved that how they are still managing this, and it's very challenging. So there are some game changers who are able to do this, but I'm able to mention very few because of the time limit, but there are a lot of people. So one such people that we are going to discuss now quickly. So one, it's first, I know this guy and you know this guy, everybody knows this guy, Steve Jobs. He has not done much of a coding or anything for the company, more he is a visionary. And you would see that game-changing thing, that is the 1,000 songs in your pocket. So he just took an iPod from his pocket, which was the best thing everybody saw. And you know the very important thing is, even the iPod idea was initially from a different company. Through their supplier, Apple got it, and from this, Apple proposed their first best one, the iPods. So even the original idea was not from the Apple, but it was later on developed by Apple to this next level. So this shows how your decision-making capability makes you rich beneficiary and makes you grow. From there, you can see how Apple didn't stop. Next comes this gentleman. I think he is none other than the Frichigona Lamborghini. So you remember the case, the experience a person gets is always beneficiary. So for example, at the end of the World War, he was serving in the army for mainly focusing on taking care of the mechanical aspect of the military vehicle. He got well experienced. So when he came back to Italy after the post-war era, he was focusing on his farming area. So he's known for his ideas, and he was a good tractor mechanic and a car lover. So because he was able to make tractors very better, there are a lot of people lined up to get to make the tractor tuned to better condition through him. So because of this, he was able to get a lot of money. He was able to buy new cars and stuff. So one such case, he bought the Ferrari car, and which he really loved it. But as you know, Ferrari is also from Italy. He had a chance to meet the founder of Ferrari, Enzo Ferrari, and told him like, Ferrari, I love your car, but there is a small issue with the clutch mechanism, which when you engage it, when you drive, I find it a little hard. So Enzo said to him, "Oh, you are just a tractor mechanic, and who are you to advise me about car manufacturing?" So that's when the feudal or a small Cold War kind of thing started, which ended up with Ferrari making Lamborghini more angry. So this led to the first invention of Lamborghini supercars. And the rest is known is history. So Lamborghini is one of the supercars nowadays, which is sold more in this world. So this is the case I want to iterate again, so as I said about SoftBanks. So this gentleman is Machiyoshi Son. So he is one of the world's biggest investment bankers, where his company funds emerging technologies and companies with the required support and other stuff. So why I really said I will talk about this gentleman later is because of three things that I really like. One is first he was focusing on how he was able to achieve more money in short time. So as a foreigner or a immigrant, he went to US to study. So there he was focusing on a lot of things. So everybody focused on one agenda, working part time as a student to get money. So rather than that, Masayoshi Son thought in a different way. Every day, 5 minutes, you'll take a break and think of inventing something new. So every day. So within 6 months, you won't believe he invented the first electronic translator and sold this to Sharp for $1.7 million. It was phenomenal. Nobody expected this, but he said that it was easy for me to do it. Then after all the studies, when he left Japan, he made a promise to his mother that he will come back. So as per the promise, he could have stayed in US. He had a lot of money. He could have started a new company, but no. He decided to go back to Japan because the promise he made to his mother, and he started the company called SoftBanks. So from SoftBanks, you see, it's more focusing on in those days when you buy a computer, you need a lot of softwares to run each of the computer peripherals. So he created a shop where you can buy all the software under one place. So this is the concept of SoftBank came, and rest is history. And he was one of the best investors, I would say, because he was the early investors in Alibaba, who invested in millions and got back returns in billions. So that is the fascinating story of Masayoshi Son. So in general, as I was about to tell you, we live in a world which is infinite. So as a common man like you and me, how can we overcome this? It's very simple. This is what I was able to experience myself. I just want to share it to you. One, we need to have a just cause, no matter whatever it is, whether it is driven morally, it is driven by money value, it is driven by technology. You need to have a just cause that you should strongly believe, or you are something good at that. Try to focus on that. Second is definitely you need a scheme. For example, a forest, one tree cannot become a forest. A forest requires a lot of trees. So similarly, when you want to become a successful person, you need a strong team and a trusting team. You should trust your team. Third is worthy revival. Worthy revival means most of the companies try to benchmark themselves because it is not that they are having always fight with each other. Rather, they try to focus on how do we develop and how do we change ourselves. So that's one of the good things that you can see nowadays in companies. And existential flexibility. The flexibility here it means is you can be very strong, but at the same time you have to be flexible to changes because again and again I'm trying to say is that we are in a VUCA world, and the pandemic is one such proof that very drastic things can happen. So imagine you are a person who just want to go for a walk every day, no matter nothing has happened. You could have not done anything such thing during the lockdown. So you see, the flexibility is very important to face this new VUCA world. And also the courage to lead, no matter what happens, you should have the courage to lead. For example, if you don't find that when you have a trusting team, they will definitely motivate you to lead. So these are some of the actual agendas, and I experienced this in my life, learning from the experts. So one was the IFS officer who is from the left side, then the middle is the practitioner from the World Bank. He is the head of operations back that time, and the last gentleman is the commissioner of the Scotland Police Yard. So I spent quite a lot of time. It's not just time; it's a half an hour, a lot of days with them to understand the experts. So I can see they're one of the world's best people in their domain, but they were very easy and approachable, humble. They time I spend with them is more important. So what I'm trying to say is, if you want to make this VUCA more easy, you should find some stalwart like this, and you have to spend some time with them because reading a book or a two is okay, but if you meet these kind of people, it's equivalent to reading like 10 to 20 books. You can learn from the lively experience for sure. So this is one trick I want to share. Second thing is witnessing the VUCA. If you remember, back in some times when there was a severe flood in my place, I was not only focusing on myself, I had to evacuate some students who were stuck up in flat, getting them food, medical attention, taking them to hospital, communicating with them and moving them to safe places, arranging transport for them. So with the no power supply and limited network connectivity, all these things were challenging. So when we witness VUCA, it's easy always to talk about VUCA, but when you witness it, you can understand how much challenging it is. So imagine the same thing happens with the company and organization. This is one such thing that happened. For sure, all of you would have undergone VUCA in yourself, but only thing is now understanding them and going forward. So some of the game changers that I want to meet is when I was in Dubai, I had a chance to meet this gentleman. The reason is very simple. He focuses on best things and try to give it to the people easily. So to give you a simple idea, what does he do? You go to his shop, you can find any perfume in the world. I mean any, not just thing, anything. You can see the raw materials in the behind. He have all the raw material and ingredients readily available. The moment you ask him, he will check the flavor, he will mix it, and he will give it to you in whatever condition that you like, and the packaging, everything is customizable and it's very quality. And in Indian rupees, he just sell it for 1,000. It's standard for anything. There is nothing high or medium. Everything is 1,000, and whatever you need, he can make it. So I challenged him with some crazy stuff. Like I asked him, "Can you make a perfume for coffee?" And you won't believe me, he made a perfume that exactly smelled like coffee. So at much that good he was. So these are some of the people who have made game-changing attributes in their businesses. So meeting such game changers gives a real adrenaline push in our mind. So coming to the last session is the research agenda. How do we do it? So I'm going to quickly share you steps that we always need. So to give you a simple understanding, I have published some papers in Journal of Cleaner Production, IEEE Transactions of Management, IJPR, International Journal of Production Research, Production Planning and Control, Quality Management and Reliability. The list goes on. From all this, what I understand is, as a reviewer also, I work with this journal. So what is the mistake that we do and how do we overcome this mistake? That's what my main idea that I want to share it to you. Later on, if you have any doubts, you can contact me in ResearchGate. I'm there in ResearchGate. It's easy for me to even share the resource that I have. So first thing is, this is how you have to structure the paper. The biggest flaw I found in many of the budding scholars is they find it difficult to structure the paper. Even myself, I had this problem. But once I realized this, I should thank to my mentors like Professor Jiju Antony, VG Venkatesh, Angappa Gunasekaran. They made me understand the structuring of articles, which later on become very phenomenal for any publication. So first thing is, if you start with the introduction, you should always highlight the research question. Like you have to make it as a separate line in italics and in bold. You have to tell what is the question, exact question that you're going to address in this paper. Second is the contribution to the field. That means your paper will have a lot of things, but if you note down the key relation that is going to give it to the field of interest, it will be very challenging. So that's where you have to pinpoint it. And also how your paper is unique. For example, you cannot just say, this paper used AHP, now we are going to do a TOPSIS, or this paper has done a survey, we are going to do a PLS. That is not a contribution, that is the methodology. But in terms of contribution, to give you a simple example, take the case of AHP. I think there are around 11 steps in AHP. Imagine you develop the 13th step, that is in average, instead of using an arithmetic algorithm, you go with a geometric algorithm to evaluate it. Then it becomes a unique contribution. So like that. Similarly, in the machining parameters, how do you optimize the machining parameter? You just use orthogonal array or a Taguchi method. That doesn't mean that you have done a unique contribution. Using orthogonal array, when you do the analysis, you find the signal to noise ratio. To that, if you can make some new contribution, or to that you can extend the analysis using an MCDM approach, then it becomes a unique contribution. So this is the thing. Second thing, in literature review, please avoid textbook kind of topics. That is, if you're writing a paper on Lean Six Sigma, don't write Lean Six Sigma, Lean Six Sigma, Lean Six Sigma. It's nonsense. If you're going to talk about it, for example, if you're going to do it in a study in a manufacturing, you should write existing lean practices in manufacturing industry. For example, let us say it is a part manufacturer for automotive industries, lean and its impact in part manufacturing automotive industry. Just focus on that. Then tell what are the shortcomings of these practices, or what are the areas which are still need to be explored. That's enough. No need to tell like a literature review, not like a textbook. You need not give all the information. And third, in methods, See, the very simple idea is this. If you're very strong and if you're very clear about your research paper, for sure you will be very strong in your methods. But unfortunately, most people never highlight the method as a big thing. Remember this point, your method should be at least 2 pages minimum. That's when the reviewer will understand, okay, the person as the author has done the work very well and he has clearly explained the method. So always it should be very clear and always put a flow chart, which helps the people to quickly see what you have done in this entire paper. Finally, in terms of data analysis, make it very crisp with key figures and key findings. And also in summary of discussion, you have to link your findings with your analysis and with your method and with your literature. This is very important. And in conclusions, never forget that you have to have managerial implications, theoretical contribution, and limitation. Most people think my study has no implication. It's not that. Even though your study is purely experimental with very few contributions, you should be able to link or propose the idea how it can be applied by a practitioner in the industry. So this is very important in when you do a review of any of your works. And finally, I'm just going to quickly show you an example. So most of you would ask me, okay, I know all this, professor, but why you're telling these are tips and tricks? That's what I'm coming to the trick. Now it's very easy to focus on one such idea as this. You can see this paper. So in detail, you can download this paper. It's open access, so it's easier for you to download. What you can see from this paper is how to write a literature review very perfectly and in a short period of time. So it is a mixture of bibliometric analysis and content analysis. What most people do nowadays is the mistake is they just do a good bibliometric analysis with no contribution to the domain. Please don't do that. First half could be a bibliometric analysis. Those who are already doing the bibliometric, it's very easy. If you take a couple of days, you can finish it. Second half is content analysis. Take an idea very clearly. And for sure, when you do the bibliometric analysis, you will get the unique clusters or the conceptual mapping area, that is CMA. I think using multi-dimensional scaling, you will get this conceptual mapping. You can find the key areas from the mapping. Based on that, if you develop your content analysis and you propose at the end a theoretical model, no journal will reject that because you have all the checkpoints. You have a bibliometric, which is a scientific mapping. When you have a content analysis, it focuses on the value addition that you're going to give it to the domain. And from based on these each factors, when you develop them, it becomes very perfect. So this is the main thing that you can do quickly. And the reason is a bibliometric paper doesn't take more time for you to publish. So please focus on this. And for sure, even though we are in a VUCA world, 100% we are organic. We are not machines. So please enjoy the life when you do it. And if you don't believe me, this is was Jeff Bezos in the beginning. So he almost took his time, but in the next 25 years, he really changed himself. So stay calm. And if you don't still believe me, this is what the entire presentation was happening. All these things were happening in the parallel swipe. So this shows that we are living in a VUCA world. And if you don't still believe me, if you go back to the slide 14, I purposefully made the word ambiguous wrong. I don't know how many of you were able to remember this or notice that. This shows that we are in a VUCA world and we have the illusion of understanding, which we need to overcome. Thank you, guys. Thanks a lot for this opportunity. Thanks a lot. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Is there any questions from participants? Is there any questions? Thank you very much, sir, for this wonderful session. We enjoyed the entire session very much. And thank you very much for accepting our invitation from your busy schedule. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks a lot, ma'am. So, and if anybody needs any more info about the research, please feel free to contact me in ResearchGate. I'm there in ResearchGate. I will be happy to help you out. Thanks you a lot, guys. Have a good day.
Have a good day, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan, Jai Hind. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all the participants for your participations. We will meet tomorrow exactly at 9 o'clock. Our first session will be started at 9 o'clock. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you, madam. Thank you.
हेलो
Yes,
मेरी आवाज ही नहीं आ रही मैम को हेलो
yes,
मैम
sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
हेलो
yes, sir. Do
मैम sir is not there now my doubt so I was saying something but it was not audible I think so hello
yes, sir.
still
Sir.
it is not audible it's okay